This is the 2022 Land Rover Defender X Dynamic SE trim level. A little bit of a mouthful. But this thing is powered by the P400 engine, and as you can see there, it's this beautiful Santorini black exterior. Now, this is going to be a pretty in-depth look at the Land Rover Defender. Going to be going through some of the basics of the vehicle, features, styling, engine options, first, second, and potential third row spacing, and a number of other things. It is absolutely mind-blowing what can be done with it. You can change out a ton of different options for the colors. The wheels are available in a ton of different varieties, not just for the rubber and for the size, but for the actual rim itself. We have a few different engine choices that are available. We've got 2 different body styles, and there are a ton of other options in between. Like, it kind of reminds me of speccing out a truck. If you've ever had to do that for your business, this is what that reminds me of. These vehicles are used for the Red Cross, and you'll even find it in the new James Bond movie, No Time to Die. So this is super exciting to be able to kind of take a peek more at this vehicle and figure out what it's all about. Now, looking at the body styling of the Defender, we've got 2 different options that are available. It's either going to be a 2-door or a 4-door, and that's going to be either the 90 versus the 110. Now, it is interesting because if you look at historical versions of the Defender, the 90 and 110 were the actual length of the wheelbases. Not so much anymore. It's just the moniker that they use now to separate the 2-door for the 4-door. So the 90 is the 2-door versus the 110, which is going to be the 4-door that we're looking at here. There's no mistaking when you've got a Defender coming at you because of how unique this vehicle looks. We've got our fender popping out right along the side there, which is beautiful, and this thing is literally loaded with technology. Now, this is the X Dynamic trim level, specifically the SE model, but having said that, a lot of technology will be included even in the base version of the vehicle. Like, we'll have our standard full 360 camera, which means that we've got our forward sensing and reverse sensing systems. We've got a few cameras that are strategically placed all throughout the vehicle as well, which is definitely a nice thing. All right, now looking at tire size inside of the vehicle, we have quite a few different options that are available. 18-inch minimum up to a 22-inch maximum from the factory with a series of different style rims. Now, these specific ones are the Scorpion Zeros, so the Pirelli Scorpions, which means that we're getting some pretty great performance out of them. And you do have a series of different style rim choices and things like that that are available, depending on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. But that's one of the beautiful parts about the Land Rover brand, is that you have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different ways that you can configure your vehicle just based off of your own personal preferences. This thing does have a max height clearance for the ground of 11.5 inches when you get the optional air suspension system, and then the max wading depth is 35.4 inches, which is crazy. We do have a nice Defender badge along the side there with some faux scoops, which is kind of an interesting design choice there. Now, we do have a series of different cameras placed strategically around the vehicle as well. So under our side view mirrors, the front, the back, we've got a backup camera, but also a higher rear mounted camera. There is a ton of technology inside of this thing, which, I mean, the body styling in this thing is long, so having some of these added cameras is a definite benefit. And having it 360 in even the base version of the Defender, I think is a great idea. I want to give Coventry North Land Rover Jaguar a huge shout out and a thank you for giving me access to this Defender to shoot the video for you today. Check down in the description below for their contact details. Now, taking a peek underneath the hood of the Defender, so we're just going underneath, so underneath the end there. So you can see we've got the release, and taking a peek at this engine. So absolutely beautiful. Now, this is the P400 version of the vehicle, and the Defender has 3 different engine choices. So it's the P300, the 400, or the 525. The 300 is a 2-liter 4-cylinder. It's going to push out 296 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, whereas this thing, the P400 that we're looking at here, can push out 395 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque, while the optional supercharged 5-liter V8 is going to push out 518 horsepower and 461 pound-feet of torque. So tons of power there. So you can see we've got easy access to a few things. So if we ever need to top up fluids, we can easily do that. If you're a fan of checking your oil, you can also do that there as well. Now, that V8 is the P525, and that thing has been inside of Land Rover Defenders for the better part of 40 years. Like, looking back, 1979, in some way, shape, or form, the Defender has had a V8 engine. Which way you go is going to depend on your towing needs, how much power you prefer as well, because you've got some options there. So as I mentioned, this is the P400 version of the vehicle, and underneath the hood does look fairly clean. Like, we've got an engine cover hiding all of those components that people typically don't like looking at. So overall, I am impressed with what Land Rover's done underneath the hood of the vehicle, and especially looking at all of the different options that you've got. All right, next up, taking a peek along the driver's side door. So we've got our intelligent access there, which this will unlock and lock the door. So as you can see there, we can unlock and lock. But one of the interesting things is that if all of the windows are open, we literally could press to lock, and then if we just hold, watch this. Up it goes, closing the sunroof all at the same time there. Absolutely beautiful. So I love the fact that we've got that option. And hopping inside, this thing is absolutely beautiful. But starting off along the driver's side door, I love all of the small details, like how we have some exposed parts there. It's kind of got like a faux carbon fibery groove type of feel to it. And we've got kind of like a neoprene type of material there, so really, really great feel. But I love the white highlights here. We've got the Meridian sound system, but that white highlight kind of moving in towards the handle there, built into that steering wheel. So it just gives it a very, very different look. And then we've got the ruggedness of the Defender steering wheel itself. But back onto the door, we do have a few different options. So a few different options for seat memory, adjuster side view mirrors, window up and down, kill off power to those rear windows. We've got our base unlock and our lock button, handle there with a little bit of storage along both the driver and the passenger door. Taking a look on the inside, we do have our parking brake there. We can adjust the brightness of our cluster screen, and then we've also got our hood release there. Now, one thing about the Defender, look at that. Fully rubberized flooring, which I think is a brilliant design choice. So you're taking this thing off-road, you could literally just spray it down in order to be able to clean it up afterwards. Got a little storage tray there. Then as you can see there, we have a seat that we can adjust quite a few different ways. We've got a multi-way lumbar support there as well, so we can create a little bit of extra stability for our lower back if we need it. Now, my first impressions of the interior of this vehicle, I am absolutely blown away, because this thing is an off-road vehicle. That's how Land Rover is touting this, as an off-road capable vehicle. But it says off-road, I see off-road with luxury, because we do have all of these great leather trims and highlights and things like that literally all over the place. Like this unique kind of leather feel, I love it. It's really, really unique. And you can tell that they've kind of molded this or modified this from being an off-road vehicle into something that's completely different and completely unique. We've got a steering wheel that's like, I want to be rugged and off-road, but I also want to be luxury at the same time. That's literally the best way that I can put it. But we've got a lot of basics and quite a few in-depth things to look at. So what I'm going to do, this is just going to be a quick walk around of the steering wheel and that media screen. If you're looking for more of an in-depth look, check down below, because I have put together a comprehensive video on how all of these systems work. But looking at some of the basics, along the top left-hand side, that's going to let us figure out what's going on with the running lamps. We also do have our fog lamps, so we can easily turn these things on or off if we want to. And it looks like, front and rear fog lamps. So cool, so cool. We obviously do have our high beams there as well. And then right stick is going to be either for the front or for the rear wiper. Now, looking at the actual wheel itself, it is nice, power adjustable, and it's telescopic, which is always a good thing. And that ties into our seat memory, because we've got 3 individual memory profile buttons there, so we can have something different for a number of different drivers there, but it's going to remember our preferences for our steering wheel as well as for our side view mirrors. So you set up your seat, you set everything up the way that you'd like to, press and hold one of those buttons along the side for it to remember your own personal preference, so either 1, 2, or 3, and it locks everything into place. So we've got a directional pad there, which is going to let us go between different screens inside of this cluster screen. We can answer or hang up on a phone call if we wanted to. We've got a hot button in order to create a favorite button for ourselves as well. And then we can easily switch between songs, radio stations, presets, things like that, very simply. There is a voice command prompt there as well, which means that we can do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using our voice, etc. So it is really cool. We've got quite a bit of flexibility there. Horn test. Sounds nice. The pad on the right-hand side. This thing does have the option for the adaptive cruise control system. Not going to be standard, but it is there optionally in some of the higher trims. So it is nice to know you've got that as an option. If you're not going to use adaptive cruise, don't worry about it. It's not standard anyways. We do at least have our base cruise control. We've got our lane keeping mode there as well. We've got our speed set limiter. So we've also got, a heated steering wheel button. So we've literally got a heated steering wheel button on the steering wheel, which I think is absolutely brilliant that they've got it here. Simply just a button press in order to be able to turn that one on or off as necessary. But absolutely beautiful look here, and there is so much going on with that media screen, and it's all connected through, well, both of them I should say, the media screen here, but also this completely digital dash. I think it looks absolutely beautiful, and there are so many options there. Like, we've got different display options, we've got trip counters, which is fairly standard, but we've got some other vehicle settings, audio source settings, and a number of other things. So I will be diving into this thing in a little bit, but let's go through some more of the basics. Now, this is not the same Defender that was available in our parents' generation. Like, not even a couple years ago. This is a completely different animal, because we did have body on frame instead, but it's now unibody. And I know what you're thinking, that's not a true off-road vehicle, but the problem though is that the cost of creating those types of vehicles is significant. So by moving to a unibody design, do you give up a few things? Yeah, you do, but at the same time, it lowers the cost, which as we move into electrification and components becoming more and more expensive, it's just a different way to offset those costs. So it is nice that Land Rover is really thinking forward to not only what's coming in the next couple years, but what's coming in the next 10 or 20 years as well. So it's getting everybody prepped for the eventual electrification, because inside of the P400, we are mild hybrid, so it is kind of a show of what's potentially coming for the vehicle lineup. Now, we do have quite a few options inside of the media screen itself, and like it is kind of ridiculous what you can do, but we've got a beautiful look there. It is based off of Snapdragon, so it's QNX, so BlackBerry created this system, but it is nice look to it. We've got our navigation, connecting phones. It is very responsive there as well. Ooh, we've got our weight sensing there as well, so we can figure out how deep the vehicle is, which is definitely a nice thing. We've got our factory navigation there as well. So the factory nav is actually fairly responsive there. We can easily do pinch to zoom, etc. Like I said, we do have the flexibility of being able to navigate using our voice if we wanted to. We've got some basics for our phone and a number of other things. But one of the cool things is what's going on with the camera. We do have the option for the 360 camera there, and it's literally that, 360, but it gives us so many, so cool. So cool. Like, looking at this thing now, I've got the one door open to shoot this part of the video, but we've got a look on the outside where it's kind of like we've got so neat, where it was almost like we've got somebody outside kind of guiding us away from obstacles and towards obstacles and things like that as well. So it is very, very smart, and this thing does look absolutely beautiful. I'm going to flip you around so you can see it, but we've got different options for on-road, for off-road, for towing, things like that. So we can literally see all different parts of the vehicle there, and it looks beautiful. I absolutely love what they've done. It looks like we've got the option to see what's going on with each individual axle there as well. So you're taking it off-road, you kind of want to see which wheel is climbing up which height. We've got that option there. We've got some different options, like I said, for on-road cameras there as well. And we can literally take this kind of 360-ish style cam, and the way that they've stitched this together is beautiful. Like, my mind is actually kind of blown right now with the way that this thing looks. But like I said, if you want the fuller walk around on that system, check down below. All right, now as we start to move down a little bit, so as you can see there, we do have our start-stop button. So the vehicle is push-button start across the entire lineup. We've got our shifter, which is actually fairly interesting. Like, it's kind of neat the way that it's positioned there, but we do have a button along the top there, so we're going to literally pull that in order to be able to change it to either drive. We can kind of push out in order to go into neutral, but we do also have to push in order to be able to move up to or reverse if we want to. Parking, we just hit the P button along the very top. But we do also have an option, if we push and move down to drive, we can push over in order to be able to change out gears that way as well. And then just button press to go back into park again. A series of different buttons along the top there. We do have our hill descent control there. So we can literally have the vehicle hold us at a set speed. Our auto start stop, so the one that's potentially going to go power to the engine. Front rear defroster. Do we want to have our max windshield defroster going? Do we want to have the air going to our windshield, face, or to our feet? We do have air suspension inside the vehicle, so we can literally press in order to be able to lower or raise the vehicle up if we wanted to. One of the cool things is the multi-function buttons here, because we button press here, and then we can literally have our heated seats turn on. If we had the option for ventilated, we would be able to go the other way, and that would show up blue instead. We can button press to bring the temperature back, and it's the same way on the passenger side. So we will at least have heated seats inside of this. We do also have the button here, which is going to let us change between different modes. So we've got our eco, normal mode, we've got our mud ruts mode, sand mode, rock crawl, and then our waiting mode there as well. So there are quite a few different options that are available there. Now, there is the option inside of the Rover for it to do it automatically as well. So that's in some of the higher trim levels that are available, but it is nice to know that it's at least available there as an option. Now, one other thing, we can button press this in order to be able to adjust the fan speed there as well. So these things are kind of neat, like fully multi-function buttons, and they can do so many different things. Moving down even more. So we do have two USB ports, so our USB-C as well as our regular USB, as well as a 12-volt power point there as well. And a boatload of storage space under this. This is kind of neat. tons of storage with a beautiful wood grain there. And that looks like it's actually like a legitimate wood grain. So it looks beautiful. It feels even more beautiful. It feels incredible. We do also have a few cup holders there. There is a wireless charging pad. And then we do have a little storage tray there, which we can pop this thing out. Okay, there's nothing underneath it there at all. So no PowerPoints or anything like that. So ice bucket, maybe if you really wanted to. But I mean, it is nice that we've at least got a few options for storage and things like that. Now we do have quite a few different configuration options for this vehicle. So it's either a 5, 6, or a 7 seat. This first row can be done 2 different ways. So it's either going to be this configuration where we've got dual captain's chairs with a console in the middle. The other option would be to have a jump seat instead. So this thing would literally be a seat. We would have no console there or an extra belt. The best way for me to describe it, like I'll show you what the interior looks like there, but the best way for me to describe it, imagine a pickup truck where you have a bench seat in the front. That's literally what you're getting there instead. So you do have a few different options that are available. It's just going to depend on how many seats do you actually need inside of your Rover. Now, as we start to move up, we do have a beautiful bar there, and it's covered in that same leather, which is great. We've got some assist handles on both sides, PowerPoint just to the right-hand side of that media screen, and we've got our Defender badge along the side. As we move up, we do have some basics for our vent control there as well. We've got our four-way blinker buttons, and then we also have an auto-dimming rear view mirror, which also has a secret feature, which this little lever there, which that thing that we normally pull in order to be able to get rid of any blinding light behind us later on at night, if we pull it towards us, it activates the camera along the very top of the vehicle. So cool. It's digital, it looks absolutely incredible. And we've got a settings button there where we can literally move this thing up or down. We can adjust the brightness for it as well. So it is really neat what Rover's decided to do with this thing. I love that functionality. We've got our home link along the bottom there. So if we've got a garage door opener at home, we can easily program in our codes there if we wanted to. Up overhead a little bit more, we do also have a few other buttons. We do have a beautiful panoramic roof inside of this vehicle as well, which means that we can vent it out. We can easily open, close, etc. We've got our vent control there as well as our shade control. We do have an SOS mode button there as well, so if you ever run into any problems, we can push that. So we have to drop that down in order to be able to push SOS mode, which I think is actually a brilliant idea on their part, so just in case kids, they won't accidentally press it. But we do also have a sunglasses holder up overhead, and then both of our visors, so they are visors with lights. We do have a business card holder, and then we can also extend this all the way. No, not quite all the way. It's a couple extra inches short, and those couple extra inches would absolutely matter here. So it would be nice if that extended out a teeny bit more, just to block any sun that might be hitting your face there. But overall, like I said, I am very impressed with what Land Rover's done with this vehicle. I think it's absolutely incredible. Now, the second row spacing inside of this thing is actually kind of ridiculous. There is a ton of space back here. I'm 6 feet tall. This seat is set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall, and I kind of moved it back a little bit just to show you, but I still have a great amount of knee space, great amount of foot space, and up overhead, I've got about 3 inches roughly of head space there. Now, it is kind of interesting because it might even be more, almost 4, maybe 4.5, just depending on kind of how you're sitting. Because even though this thing does have the panoramic sunroof, there still is quite a bit of space just because it ends right where the cutoff for that second row is, right where the top of my head would be. So there is a boatload of space. So 6'4", 6'5", probably even taller, you'd probably comfortably be able to sit in the second row of this thing. But looking at some features here, because we have a few different ways that we can configure this. Now, this middle row is going to be the same no matter what. So it's always going to be 3 seats. We've got the option for a jump seat in the front, 2 extra seats in the back. So we could get up to 7 seats inside of this thing. But we actually do have a few different ways so we can fold this thing down a few different ways, which is kind of neat. So we can literally fold this one seat down. If you've got kids fighting, you want to separate people, whatever the case may be. No cup holders in the back here, unfortunately, but we have cup holders in the front. So we lift it up, cup holders here. So it is kind of nice to know. The big reason why you'd maybe want to fold this one down is, like I said, separating kids that might be fighting, or if you need to get some more cargo, things like that, and you just don't have any more space in the back at all. We do also have our heated outboard seats, so that's going to be for the driver passenger side. This middle seat is never going to be heated. Moving back again, we do also have 2 12-volt power points, as well as 2 USB-C ports. Now on top of that, just in behind the actual seats, and that's going to be for the driver passenger side, we also do have another power point, so a USB port, and that's going to be for the driver as well as for that passenger side of the vehicle. But overall, I'm impressed. We've got handles there, we've got our hooks there, we've got our pillar assist handle there as well. So if you are doing some more rugged off-road and you're kind of bouncing all over the place, this thing is in there, it's in there good, and it is super comfortable all at the same time. Now this specific one does have the tow package from the factory, which means that we've got our provisions for 4 7-pin wiring, as well as a receiver there, which if you're in the P300 or the P525, you can pull up to 7,700 pounds. Inside of the P400, so this thing, you're gonna be able to pull 8,157 pounds. So a lot of pulling power here, which is great because we're not sacrificing pulling power and things like that by stuffing more technology into this vehicle. Now, I am actually kind of surprised at how big this vehicle is, how tall specifically, because we have a boatload of ground clearance, which is great for off-roading and things like that, but this thing is just a massive vehicle. Super long, super high, all at the same time. But looking, we do have one thing just kind of glaring at us right now, and this is the full-size spare tire that is rear-mounted. Now, one of the interesting things, typically with rear-mounted tires, we usually see a camera right in the back there, and that would typically be our backup camera. But Rover's done something different with this Defender. We do have our backup camera a little bit further down, so right above where our plate would be. But we also have a shark fin antenna along the top there, and it does have a camera on the back of that as well. So it is kind of neat that they've decided to go that route, but it gives us really, really cool capabilities, so we can figure out exactly what's going on behind us in a few different ways. So it's very unique and very forward thinking on Land Rover's part to do that. And then we also have a button riddle on the very back. We can pull that in order to be able to open up the door. But taking a look there, so we do have a little handle along the top to be able to open and close this a bit easier. There is a little hidden area there where we do have a little emergency kit. You can easily lock this thing back up. And then as you can see there, we have a little storage space along that door. Moving to the inside, we do have a few pockets, so on the passenger as well as the driver's side. We do have a few hooks, so if you want to put cargo nets and things like that in there, we've got that option. And we've got a few different tie-down hooks. So we've got 4 total ones in the 110 version of the vehicle. Along the left-hand side, we do have a 12-volt power point there. And then, if your vehicle comes with air suspension, you will also have these buttons in the back. No air suspension, you just won't have these buttons there. But we can raise and lower the vehicle from the back here, which is definitely a nice thing. We do also have our cover in the back here, so as you can hear there, so it is a hard plastic there, and that's not only for this protector, but also for the back of the seats there. So if we're putting gear and things like that, we can easily hose this thing down, or we can literally pull the whole tray out if we want to. So take a peek at the cargo dimensions for the vehicle, and that's strictly for the cargo area by itself. Now, this obviously is the 110 version of the vehicle, so the full 4-door, and it's just the 5-seat configuration. So we don't have the 2 seats in the back here, but if we did, we could also fold those ones flat in order to create some more space. But we do have a couple different measurements that are showing up. We've got measurements for the actual loading area, and then the loading area height. But if you go in a couple extra inches, you'll have more width, and then you also have more height there as well. So a few different dimensions that are showing up. It's just going to be dependent on how you're going to be loading cargo up. Now, one of the interesting things about the Defender is how we can fold these seats down. We could just kind of go the old-fashioned way, where we take the headrests and we just lower down both of the rests. There we go. So we fold the headrest down, and then we've got the main button in order to be able to drop this down, which in and of itself is nice. Like, we've got this nice kind of back on here. It's a hard plastic, which is kind of neat, but this is cool. But the problem though is that it's not a flat fold. So if you need to get larger boxes and things like that in here, a little bit of a challenge. So what we're gonna do, pop the seat back up, and then on both the driver passenger side, we have the option of pulling the seat up this way instead. So it's either for the individual cushion or pulling that up. We've also got it for this double side as well. Now that's nice because, watch this. We take that same latch, we lower the seat down into this beautiful flat fold. Now look at the comparison between the two. So we've got the flat fold versus the drop fold. So, I mean, the idea of like a stow and go kind of like flat fold seat is absolutely beautiful. And I love the fact that the Defender has that option. And as you saw there, it is really straightforward in order to set it up. Setting it up that way, the driver's seat set up for somebody who's like 6'2", so you'd still have plenty of space for that driver passenger side with that flat fold instead. And like I said, we can fold it down a few different ways. So if we have the seat back up again, we can push this button right in the very middle there in order to be able to fold that seat down individually. Now moving in towards the back of the vehicle, we do have a cargo protector mat there, which whether you go for that one or not is going to be a matter of preference, because underneath we do have a harder surface in the back here as well, which we could literally just kind of take this thing off, and yeah, we can fully remove this as well, so if we need to spray it down. So whether you get that other accessory or not is going to be a matter of preference, but underneath we do have our jack there, and we have a nice amount of storage space. Now the spare tire, as you saw, is just mounted to the back of the door there as well, so if we needed to change our tire ourselves, we could technically do it, or we could just call Land Rover roadside assistance instead. Now this is the P400 version of the Defender, which means that it is the mild hybrid version of the vehicle. So in theory, you should get pretty good gas mileage out of this thing. Now there are a series of different options. You've got the air suspension system and things like that. Every little thing you do to the vehicle, so whether you've got different things for payload, if you're towing things, etc., that's obviously going to have an impact on your fuel mileage. The ride quality in this thing, this is absolutely incredible. Like, it's super quiet, really, really comfortable. Like, the cabin in this thing, like, there is pretty much no noise whatsoever. Now, this thing does have the optional air suspension system, so that would make sense why the ride is so quiet, but just the overall, like, it is like almost a deafening silence inside of this thing. Now, obviously, like, typically I would have the audio going, etc., but just for test drive purposes, I obviously don't have any sort of audio going right now, but it is nice to know that this ride in and of itself is this quiet. Like, I am super surprised at how quiet this thing is. It's got some nice pick up and go when you need it. So if you need to kind of get around people quickly, it's nimble all at the same time, which is great. Steering wheel is super comfortable, really comfortable. That's nice. I love the fact that this thing's got the heated steering wheel button directly on the actual steering wheel itself. Like, such like a simple thing that just makes all the difference at the same time. That's a really, really great part, Land Rover. So good job on that one. Looking at the 90 versus the 110, looking at the overall size of the 110, it's a teeny bit big for what I would personally need, just based off of my current lifestyle. But if you're the type of person where you need like a 5-seater with a bunch of storage space, the 110 is probably going to be the way that you go. The big question is going to be, how do you have this thing configured? And that's one of the interesting parts. And even when I was doing my research in order to create this video, it is incredible, like the number of optimizations and customizations and different things you can do to this vehicle. Like, it's actually kind of mind-blowing. And this is one of those times, like, looking at certain vehicles like the Ford F-150, transit vans, there are certain vehicles you're going to want to deal with a representative for in order to make sure you're getting the exact right vehicle for you. A Land Rover is in that class of vehicle itself, because there are so many different ways you can customize this thing. You can build it out pretty much however you want to do it. So if this thing is on your radar, what I would recommend is going to a local dealership. Like, the folks at Coventry North are absolutely incredible. If you're in the GTA or in Ontario, they can absolutely help you out. But if you're outside of that, go to a JLR dealership, so Jaguar Land Rover dealership. And the big reason why is because dealing with one of these professionals, they know the vehicles, they know the ins and outs, they can tell you everything you need to know about your specific build. I'm not saying that I can't, but the amount of detail. And I was chatting with one of the sales reps, and he was saying that typically one of their sales appointments, anywhere between 3 to 5 hours plus in order to build out your exact vehicle. So if you've got something very specific in mind, you might want to consider just going into a Land Rover dealership to figure out exactly what you want out of the vehicle so that they can build one out based off of your exact specifications. This is really nice though. This is really, really nice. And here we are. Boom. Well, folks, that was an in-depth look at the 2022 Land Rover Defender. What did you think? I personally love this vehicle. I love what they've done with it. I think that this is an incredible look at what's going to come inside of the Land Rover lineup, especially as we get into more hybrid options, electric options, and things like that. Like, I am really curious to see how they decide to incorporate that technology into future vehicles. But this is a really good start. What did you think? Like, if you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below, let me know. But I definitely recommend to reach out to the folks at Coventry North Land Rover, because they will absolutely be able to answer every question you've got about this vehicle, and they will absolutely be able to help you out with your ideal build. And this is one of those times where you can watch as many videos as you want to, but I definitely recommend talking to a rep to make sure you're in the right vehicle for you. If you have any questions, though, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your social networks, and think about subscribing because it helps the channel grow. And until I see you next time, take care. Or the 110 version. Now, it's actually interesting because if you look at or we could just call Rover Landside Assistant. They do fold down a few different ways, because what we could do, literally just along the headrest, lower these rests themselves. You do have options for adding things in, like the air suspension system that is available.